Boker Tov, today's Daf is Daf Lamed Tes. In Yevmot says we learn from four Shlema, for Lozer ben Reuma and Yosef Asriel ben Chai Michal. We start from the two dots where we left off yesterday, almost halfway down on the page. That's what the Mishnah said at the end, that once the Yavam marries her, again in our case, Shimon marries Leah, she's his wife in all respects. But her ksuba is paid by her original deal that she made with Ruvain when she got married. So what do you mean she's like his wife and all that? What do you mean she's his wife? Of course, he married her. What does that mean? That if he decides to divorce her now, she's his wife in all respects, and he divorces her with a get, and not with a chalitza, umachzira, and he can even take her back. If he's not a Kohen, he can marry her again. If he's not a Kohen and she didn't marry anybody else in between, so we say that he divorces her and he could take her back. In other words, she's a regular wife. So why shouldn't he be able to? Let's see why. Why not? That's right. Now she's his wife. Why not? We'll see. Megarsha beget. Why isn't that pshita isn't obvious? He divorces her. He's his wife now. Of course, if you divorce, the only way to get divorced is with a get. Pshita. I think the pasuk says, he will always be defined as a yavam. He's never going to be defined as a regular husband. Is the yibma? He will perform yibam. He's always a yavam. Amar Achmana. That's what Hashem said. Vadayin yivumei arishin aleh. He's still considered a yavam, meaning he's still considered a yavam. Yes, he's fulfilled the mitzvah, but he's a yavam. And the chalitza and the get low. Still, if he divorces her now, he's a yavam. Whether he gave her chalitza before, if he gives her chalitza before they get married, he shouldn't marry her anymore. But even if he gave yibum, you might think, we know now, we've mentioned this many times, that once he marries her, she's his full wife. But this is the point. We might think, no, maybe in this case, it's only chalitza. Get is in a normal marriage. This is a marriage that was a levirate marriage, a yavam. Shimon married his brother's wife. You might think if he decides to divorce her now, he gives her chalitza, which will take an effect. Kamash Mulan, no. B'chalitza and to get low. Kamash Mulan, that no, that we say that he gives her a get. Why? How do we learn that? We'll see. Machzira, and he can take her back. Isn't that also pshita? Once he's his wife, a man, if regular Yisrael or a Levi divorces his wife and she doesn't marry somebody else in between, he can take her back. Machzira pshita, isn't that obvious? I'm thinking mitzvah Rahmana. Hashem told him to do mitzvah yibam. He did the mitzvah. Hashta, once he performed the mitzvah, and now he decided he doesn't want her anymore. So now Hashem take him lev. It reverts back to the original Isser. When Reuven married Leah, what is she to Shimon? Eishasach. You can't marry your brother's wife. If they have children, you can never marry your wife under any circumstances. There's no way that Shimon could ever marry Leah. It's also Eishasach. Only in a special circumstance where they died with no children, then we say there's a form of mitzvah of yibum. Okay, you performed the mitzvah of yibum. Now you divorced her. You decided you don't want her. Now you want to take her back. Oh, let's go back to the original Eishasach. You did the mitzvah. That's done. Right? We said if he divorced her the next day, he still performed the mitzvah. Whether they had children, subsequently or not, they performed the mitzvah. I might think he goes back now to the original Isser of Eishasach. Kamashma, we don't say that. And now we say on both those points, maybe that really should be the case. Maybe he's always considered a yavam. And if he divorces her, not with a get, it should be with chalitza. And it's always a yavam, meaning she's still also to him as Eishazach, except he performed the mitzvah. When he did the mitzvah yibam, then there's no Eishazach, there's a mitzvah. Pardon? No, he can't. The mitzvah is only performed once. The mitzvah is performed by consummating the marriage. That's the mitzvah. Now, he does yibam once and that's it. Divorce her, then there's no mitzvah yibam anymore. He might be in love with her. But, pardon?
She has no children.
Right. The truth is that's the nice idea. The nice idea is that he should perform the yibum and have children, so to speak, to extend the name and the life of the deceased. That's the ultimate idea. But we don't say that if he didn't do that, they didn't have children afterwards, or he didn't have a son or whatever, that there's no mitzvah. The mitzvah is yibum, consummate the marriage. The long run is you're supposed to do this. Like people are supposed to get married, right? To have children. If they couldn't have children for whatever reason, not their fault, they didn't get that mitzvah, but they still got married. They did the right thing here too. They got married. That's what he's supposed to do. So I might think now it reverts back. Once he performed the mitzvah's over. You want to marry her again? No, now she's maybe those things should be usher. Maybe he should, if he divorces her now, it should need chalitza because he's still called the yavam. and maybe he shouldn't be allowed to take her back because there's still an Isser Veishesach there, except when he performed the mitzvah of Yibam and he stayed with her. The pasuk says l'kachalo leisha. Could have just said l'kachalo the Yibma. Why say l'kachalo leisha? She's a regular wife now. That a regular wife in all aspects. If you want to divorce her, it's like any other wife that you divorce, you give her a get. And if you want to take her back, you could take her back like anybody else. The Isser Veishesach falls away. There's no more Isser Veishesach once he performs the Yibam. Even Shalakha, once he took her, my time. Why does the ksuba have to come from the original husband's assets? Because Shimon never agreed to this. What happened? Shimon was a poor soul over here. His brother was married to Leah, and he died with no children. So Torah says, you know what the right thing is? You should perform Yibam. Well, I got to pay for this too. He agreed to a ksuba of $100,000. I didn't agree to that. Okay, that's not his fault. So the ksuba should come from his original assets. Now the truth is, who's going to get those assets? We'll see that. That's on tomorrow's daf. Doesn't he get the assets anyway of Reuven? Doesn't he get those assets anyway? No, Leah doesn't. This is not common law. She doesn't inherit anything. A wife inherits nothing from her husband. Okay, there's what's written into the ksuba she gets. But she'll get right. She's going to get that eventually, but he has no obligation on that. Meaning, Rashi even says, he's not Mishah. Let's say she had a ksuba of $100,000. So Shimon's not obligated to use his $100,000 for that. He can spend his money as he wants. Okay, except it will come from the estate. You're right, that's what you meant. It comes from the estate of Reuven. It'll eventually come from the estate of Reuven, meaning he has to, we're going to say that Shimon is the heir of Reuven. Machlok, whether it's the father Yaakov, but whatever. Let's assume that it's Reuven's. It belongs to Shimon now, so he has to pay the ksuba from those assets. Let's say Reuven didn't leave enough assets to pay the ksuba for whatever reason. He lost all his money in the stock market before he died. Maybe that's why he died. So tikina mishani. So they made a takana that even if he didn't have it from Muslim, that the Rabbanan said he should pay the ksuba from Shimon, even though he didn't obligate himself. So that he should think twice before divorcing. There's a machlokas, whether ksuba is doraisa or drabanan. If it's doraisa, the Torah said you have to give a woman a ksuba. It's the right thing to do. If it's drabanan, which was usually the accepted idea, why is there a ksuba? So the person should feel an obligation to his wife that he should think twice before divorcing her. It's going to cost him a pretty penny, in divorce. So he'll think twice about divorcing her. So the same thing here.
Another one?
Pardon?
He writes a new one also?
Good. No, he doesn't have to write a new one. Presumably, if the first one's for $1 million and he doesn't have that kind of money and Reuben doesn't have it, so presumably he'd have to give her a ksuba, probably the minimal one. The Gemara doesn't discuss that here. It's a good point. Right. In other words, basically he has that obligation. If the first guy left the money, if the first guy didn't leave the money, he should have a ksuba, but not necessarily ksuba to the extent that Reuben had promised her.
He pays the first ksuba.
Yeah.
From the state.
Oh, then he doesn't have to. He doesn't have another ksuba.
When he marries her now with Yibam,
he doesn't have to write a ksuba. You go with the first ksuba. He doesn't have to write a new ksuba. There's also a shalom whether the ksuba has to be written or not. There's an obligation, even if it's ksuba. There are locales we had in ksubas where they don't write a ksuba because then she might collect it twice and all that. So the idea basically is no, the ksuba is on the first husband. The ksuba is Reuven's obligation. And he should the money that he left that Shimon inherits should come from there. But if there's not enough money to cover it, or he has left no money, then he has to give her some minimal ksuba, the minimal amount.
Does he pay the shata?
No, only if they get divorced or die. Ksuba is only paid upon death or divorce. Except Rashi pointed out the other day, we have it elsewhere that if she dies, he could might have to pay for the funeral expenses. That's also part of it. And also what they call the ksubas b'din dichron. In other words, remember we said that there's two kinds of nechasim that she brings into the marriage. One that's not written into the ksuba that he can play with nechsim milug. We discussed that yesterday. That if she had nechasim that she had before she got married, or even if they fell to her after she got married, an unexpected inheritance came down, he can use that money while they're married and assets, whatever, but he's not responsible for them. But at the end, when they get divorced, or widowed, that stuff goes back. Or if she dies, possibly, depends what her situation is. If she's still married to him, the husband inherits everything. And the same thing with the ksuba. He might promise her $1 million, but that's only if they get divorced or he dies. But if she dies, not necessarily so, except for there's a thing called ksuba spin different, except for the sons. For example, let's say they write this into the ksuba, let's say a father-in-law, the girl's father getting married. And he says, the husband says, he went to Lakewood and he wants $1 million. And, he wants a lot of money. So the father-in-law might say, listen, I'll give you the $1 million, I'll put it into the ksuba. But if God forbid she dies, you're not walking off with the money. Understand that that's basically what happens in a regular ksuba. If she dies, he doesn't have to pay. He inherits everything, right? If she dies and she's not married to him anymore, then her kids get it or her father gets it. We discussed that the other day. But there's a thing called ksuba. So he says, listen, what do you think? I'm giving you, the father-in-law says he's giving $1 million, right? As a nadin, in the dowry. And, but he can write into the ksuba that if she dies, the father-in-law doesn't want the husband to take the money and give it to his other kids from his other wife, so that part can be accepted. But basically, the ksuba, it doesn't have to be paid if she dies. Okay. Mitzvah begadol liyabim. The mitzvah, if there's several brothers, let's call it Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda for the sake of argument. There's 3 brothers, right? The older brother, Reuben, died, left a brother, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. Now, it doesn't mean the Bechor. It says, Hoya Bechor, that we had that before. It doesn't mean literally. It means the oldest brother. So the mitzvah is in the older brother. Lo Ratza, if he doesn't want to, ask the other brothers, go down the list. Lo Ratza, nobody wants it. They tell the older one, they go, nobody else wants it. They go back to the older brother. Lo, Alecha mitzvah, you've got the mitzvah. Either give a chalitza or yib. Okay. Listen. We got a young kid brother. He's 8 years old. Wait till he grows up. Let him do it. Right? We don't want to do it. Let him do it. Or they tell, we got a brother there. There's an older brother, but he's in the States now on business, right? So what do? Oh, cherish or shota. They say, listen, marry a cherish or shota. That there's one of the brothers is a cherish or a shota. Ain't somebody listen to them. Ela omla. We say, listen, Alecha mitzvah ochalot sayim. We don't listen to any stories. You got to either give her chalitza or yibam, whoever's there now. In other words, if somebody's available now to do it, as we'll see, the Gemara will explain, you don't delay it. You don't leave a mitzvah. You have a mitzvah to do it, you do it right now. You don't delay. So therefore, if the older brother does it and he wants to do it, that's fine. If the other brother, if he doesn't want to do it, and one of the other brothers who is there will do it, so he can do it. If nobody wants to do it, you go back to the older brother. But you don't listen to excuses. Wait a while. We got another brother who's growing up. We got a brother overseas, etc. Now the Gemara gets into this question. Itmar. What happens if it's choice? Bias cotton, b'chilitz is gadol. We don't mean a cotton as a child here under 12 years old. In the Mishnah, we said we have a cotton who's 8 years old. Wait till he gets older because you can't do chalitza. Chalitza cannot be formed until he's bar mitzvah. We'll talk about yibum because yibum, if a kid could have bia when he's 9 or 10 years old, the Gemara will discuss that later on. But chalitza certainly can't do. But here we're talking when he's a cotton. Here we're talking bias cotton. We mean the younger brother. We don't mean the one who's not bar mitzvah. No, there's a choice like this. Are you better off with, let's say Shimon and Levi? Let's say there's 2 brothers only, okay, 2 surviving brothers, Shimon and Levi. Shimon is 20 and Levi is 15. So what's better? If the 15-year-old wants to do yibam or the chalitza of the gadol, which one is better? Which one is preferable? Better to do bia because bia is the preferable mitzvah to do yibam. At least in those days it was. Better to do chalitza of the older one. Better that the older brother, again, from the word habachor, we learned out that the older brother has preference in this. Whatever the older brother will do is better, even if he does chalitza. For the one who says that it's better to have the 15-year-old do bia, the mitzvah yibam, the preferable mitzvah to yibam. The one who says better do chalitza with an older brother, the makam gadol bias gadol lavkum. In the place where there's a gadol, the bia becomes on. In other words, we're talking about as a 20-year-old doesn't want to do bia, he wants to do chalitza, and the 15-year-old says, "I'll do the bia, I'll do it. I'll do the yibam. I'll marry her. I'll do which one is preferable." So the one who says yibam is better to do with the 15-year-old because we prefer to do mitzvahs yibam. The one who says chalitza is gadol because the more preferential thing is for the older brother to do something. Is it better to perform yibum, even if it's a younger brother, or better to do chalitza with the older brother, because the older brother is the preferable one who's supposed to act. Tanan, so let's try to bring a proof from our Mishnah. Mishnah says, lo rotz, if the older brother doesn't want to do it, machzir kolach, and you ask the other brothers, my love, lo rotz liyam. What does that mean? He didn't want to do yibum. Elach, let's presume that means the older brother wants to do chalitza, doesn't want to do yibum. And the Mishnah seems to say, if he doesn't want to do yibum, he only wants to do chalitza, you ask the other brothers. You go to the other brothers. Shema mina bias katan adifa. So you see over here, that's what apparently the Mishnah says. The older brother doesn't want to, you ask the other brothers. We assume that means the older brother doesn't want to do yibum, and he wants to do chalitza. If he only wants to do chalitza, let's ask the other brothers. What shows you that bia of a younger brother is better. This is low. Doesn't mean that. Lo rotza lachlotz v'lo yabim. It means he doesn't want to do anything. He wants no part of this. The older brother, they go to the older brother and says, I don't want to do more chalitza. Ask them. I don't want to do anything. That's what he says. So if that's the case, so he says the older brother doesn't want to do anything. Then they go to the other brothers and they also don't want to do anything. The kavasik avayachin. So it means by the other brothers also lo rotza lachos lo yabim, because you're assuming lo rotza means the same for both. So why do they have to go to the why do they go back to the gadol to force him to do? If nobody wants to do yibum or chalitza, I understand the older brother wants to do yibum, fine. Say if the older brothers don't do anything, you go to the other brothers. The other brothers don't want anything. When you get to the last brother, just tell him you got to do chalitza. Why do you have to go back to the older brother? That's just keeping the mitzvah lady day. Since the mitzvah is really on the older brother, a lady day it's on him. But we force the older one. So it could be that's what the Mishnah means. Could be the Mishnah says when he says lo rotza, it doesn't mean he didn't want to do yibum, but rather chalitza, which indicates that you'd rather do yibum of a younger brother because you then go to the younger brothers. Go to the younger brothers, and that proves that. No, lo rotza means he didn't want to do anything. Nobody wanted to do anything. They were all like, I don't want to have any part of this mitzvah. I don't want to eat more chalitza. And we go to the older brother and we tell him, listen, you either do eat more chalitza. All right, so you can't prove from there. What about this part of the Mishnah? If they said, listen, wait, we got an 8-year-old brother, wait till he grows up. Ain't shomalo, we don't listen. Why? If none of the brothers want to do yibam, right? There's 20-year-old and the 15-year-old don't want to do yibam, but there's a younger brother, let's wait till he grows up. Maybe he'll do it. Why not? If bias cotton is better, wait till he grows up. Ninter, wait till Megana, maybe he'll, when he gets bar mitzvah, miyam, he'll do yibam. Ul tamech, says the Gemara, tamech, uvagara shiyam dina sayam. Also, you wait for a gadol to come. Ain't shom, you don't listen to my ninter. Why don't you wait there too? When you say they have an older brother, the oldest brother, in fact, is overseas. Why don't you wait there till damasi umiyabim is the gear? So maybe he'll come and make yibam. Why don't you that ela kol shiyam mitzvah lo shinan? We don't delay mitzvahs. If you have a mitzvah in front of you, mitzvah biyadcha al tachmitzena. Shehuya mitzvah lo mashininan. We don't delay mitzvahs. So the reason over there we don't wait is not necessarily because that proves that that the bee of a cotton is not good. Why don't we wait? The reason we don't wait, it could be the bee of a cotton is preferable. Could be that the 15-year-old's bee is better than the 20-year-old's chalitza. But the reason we don't wait there is because you don't push off a mitzvah. You have a mitzvah to do the yibum or chalitza.
It's advantageous for the older one to do chalitza.
Yeah.
He has to assume the responsibilities of taking care of his wife.
That's right. Sometimes the Torah gives them, we have being a Jew incurs obligations too. We have to buy tefillin, we have to buy lulav, we have to buy Pesach. You know what Pesach costs? Mos chitin. You know, and there's a lot of mitzvahs that we have to do. Also, he might be encouraged because Reuben might have left a lot of money, and Shimon gets that money. So we don't know. But they say situation could incurs responsibilities, and the Torah gives us those responsibilities. You know, it's a great mitzvah to do yibum when they did it. I tell you, until modern times, in some Sephardi communities, they actually did yibum. Okay, so that's one way we had the question: what's better, the chalitza of a gadol of the 20-year-old or the bia of a 15-year-old? Some say, we're on Amid now, the bia kolayamalo pligi, the bia is cutting the. Everybody agrees that if one of the brothers wants to do yibum, even if he's a younger brother, he's 15, and his older brother, the 20-year-old, wants to do chalitza, we let the younger brother do yibum. That's preferable. Keep pligi, the machlokas between these two, Rav Yochanan, Shuman Levi, is bechalitza's cotton. Keep pligi bechalitza's cotton. V'achiyidmar. Chalitza's cotton, chalitza's cotton. Let's say there's a choice. Again, cotton here does not mean under bar mitzvah. We mean the 15-year-old. If there's a choice of the 20-year-old doing chalitza or the 15-year-old doing this, is there a difference between them? Is one preferable over the other? So please, Rabbi Yochanan Shuman Levi, Chadamar chalitza's gadol, better do the gadol, right? The Chadamar kedar, it just doesn't make any difference. Nobody's going to say that the 50-year-old's chalitza is better than, more preferable than the 20-year-old. But the question doesn't make any difference. If you're going to chalitza, let either one do it. Manda chalitza is gadol for the one who says it's better for the 20-year-old to do it. The mitzvah is for the older one to act one way or another. The idach, the other one will say, Kim, in the mitzvah gadol, where do you say mitzvah gadol in yibam? If one was going to do yibam, the preference was yibam. Avalin chalitza, if they're going to do chalitza and kick her out anyway, doesn't make any difference. Kadanina, that's the question. Tanan, so let's read proof again from our Mishnah. If they didn't want to do it, presumably they didn't want to do yibam, but rather do chalitza, chotzern eitzel gadol, you go back to the gadol. My lav lo rotzal yabam lalachas, and presumably it means none of them wanted to do yibam, wanted to do chalitza. We go back and have the older one do it. Why go back to the older one? If it doesn't make any difference, just do whichever one you're talking to right now. This is low. Again, like we said before, the Mishnah could be speaking more where they didn't want to do anything. The Kavasa got that nobody wanted to do anything. So they go back to the Gadol, so he doesn't want to do anything also. Why do you go back to him? Why do you go back to force him? Force whoever you're at right now. Elamai must be, right? Must be because it's preferable for the older one to do. There's no keeping the mitzvah. And since the main mitzvah is on him, we force him. But you can't prove over here which one is preferable. The mitzvah is on him, so we go to him. But if it's a choice of the two, we if nobody wants to do anything, we force him. But let's say the younger one wants to do chalitza, and the older one is not so anxious to do it, so we let the younger one do it. We don't say the older one has to do it. If nobody wants to do anything, and we have to force somebody, we'll force the older one. But if the younger one was anxious to do chalitza, and the older one didn't want to do anything, maybe we would let the younger one do it. Can't prove from there. Tashma, again, a proof from the end of the Mishnah. Tala Begado. Let's say they said, we have an older brother in Chutzlan, Shashiyovim Din Siyam. Ain't Shomelo, we don't listen to them. Bisak that the chalitza is gadol. If you say the chalitza of a gadol is better than the chalitza of a cotton, amayin shomlo. The older brother's overseas. If you say, if there's a choice of chalitza of the younger one or chalitza of the older one, you go to the older one, right? So why don't you? If you say you go to the older one, why don't you wait for him to come for chalitza? Bisak chalitza gadol. If amayin shomlo, ninter wait. Dilma asi maybe he'll come and do chalitza. So the Gemara will tamech b'katan shi'agil ain't shomlo. Why don't you listen to him? Amayin ninter. Why don't you wait? Dilma gadol miyabam. Why? Elomai, kol shi mitzvah l'shim, like we said before, you don't wait to do mitzvah. So you can't prove anything. When they said wait for the younger kid to grow up or wait for the older brother to come back from chutzlaretz, there it's because you don't delay mitzvahs. But again, we can't prove our question if there's a choice. What's preferable? A 20-year-old doing chalitza or a 15-year-old doing chalitza? One says the older one should do it. So if it's a choice to give it to the older one, the other one says no, there's no difference. That's what we just said. We force the older one to do it. They go back. That's the Mishnah. You go back to the older one. They force it. She'd be an aguna until such time. Yeah, that's what we discussed. It. There are cases today. There are cases where you do chalitza. People are aware of cases. People in families, whatever, do chalitza. And there are cases where there was a case in Israel years back where a young couple was here, Choser B'tshuva, 25-year-old. They were both 25, whatever, and the boy died. He got sick and he died. And it was a young almana here. And he had a brother in America who was not religious and wanted no part of this. Very complicated. It's like a man who's not religious doesn't want to get involved, give a get. She's an aguna. So, okay, if they're an aguna, she's an ashes ish. Here, it's only a lav of marrying somebody in the shuk without getting chalitza, but you have to do chalitza. It's a complicated it's a problem. Pardon?
Remember what they did?
No, I don't know what happened. I think they eventually convinced the brother. Maybe they paid him off. Whatever you do.
Did we learn somewhere else that the Beit Din has a co-op to Mevatel and all the wedding without anybody's permission based in?
Yeah, but that's only under certain circumstances.
But here we have a guy who.
Yeah. So So to
you have a lot of money in your Rosh Hashiva. Otherwise,
pardon?
Only if you have a lot of money in your Rosh Hashiva. Otherwise, not. That's a Meir Chacham. Otherwise, you can't.
Yeah. It's complicated. It's complicated. There are cases. There was a case up north where there was some Yiguna with I think the Bezdin in Sfas where they annulled the wedding. They annulled the original wedding based on something, that had she known this, that was where they were married and he was a recalcitrant husband. And they said, had she known what she was getting into, she would have married him and therefore was a mitzvah b'tolos. But over here, it's hard to annul a marriage when the guy's dead. The Reuben's dead. It's very hard to say, it's complicated. It's very, very
In
simple.
Sacramento, we had a case where they
With-
told,
Had to do
she would've
chalitza.
known
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Rumi, you know that the Fetter's wife. You remember, Uncle Volvi had to do chalitza on her. You remember that, or you were too young?
I remember when you wrote it up.
Oh, you don't remember it
I
actually?
remember you wrote it up in your weekly thing, and you said that the story, you had the whole story there.
Yeah.
We didn't
but
know.
you
I remember he flew it.
It was Mimasura.
Yeah. He had to do it.
Pepe had a great uncle and lived in Sfas in Bnei Brak.
Bnei Brak.
And he was a tzaddik, and he had survived from Romania. He had survived Auschwitz. He lost his wife and children in Auschwitz. They were all killed. And he was married a second time here, and then a third time. And unfortunately, he died with no children. And this was in 1995. I remember, I think it was 95 or 96 that he died. We used to visit him all the time in Bnei Brak. And he was like 90 or in his 90s, and he left the 85-year-old wife with no children. She had no children from earlier or after she never had any children. He didn't, and he died with no children. His children died in Auschwitz. And he had a younger brother in America who's all since gone. He's gone now too. He had a younger brother in America who had a from guy. They were all from, and he had to come and give her chalitza. And I remember discussing it with Rav Dor, because you have to be freed, even though technically she wasn't going to get married. It wasn't like a 25-year-old girl wants to remarry and she needs chalitza to free her. This woman wasn't going to get married again. She was 85 or whatever. And it wasn't a question of that, but she has to be freed for the neshamas. There's an Indian that he came to Israel and gave her chalitza. Tanan Hassam. We learn over here in the Charis as follows. Mitzvah yibum kodem so mitzvah chalitza. It's preferable to do yibum over chalitza. For Rishona, that was at the beginning. Shoyim Miskav l'shem mitzvah. He did it l'shem mitzvah. He did it in kind the mitzvah yibum. Hashem said to give us to do a mitzvah. If your brother died with no children, marry his wife. Achshav shem miskav l'shem mitzvah. Now that they have carnal intentions or other intentions, whatever, not l'shem mitzvah. Amru mitzvah chalitza kanemis l'mem mitzvah. Even better to do chalitza, not even, which is what Ashkenazim do today. Amar Rav. Ain't kofim, but we don't force them. If they both want to get married, we allow them. If either one doesn't want to get married, of course he could do chalitza. If she doesn't like him, he wants to get married to her, and she doesn't like him, she's allowed to veto it. The Gemara, we had the Gemara before, we mentioned it before, we have it again. It says lo sachsom, right? We don't muzzle her. Let's say she says, I can't take him. The Gemara is going to give a case of the Gemara in Subas. There's a story in Sidon where she was married to a tanner. Tanners stink. They come home, they smell. He died, no children. His brother was also a tanner. They said, listen, you're used to it already. She says, no, my husband I could take. I can't take another one. And they forced him to do chalitza. They pay him off what's necessary, whatever's necessary, try to convince him or pay him off. Like Rashi says, you pay him off. If you have to pay him off, you pay him off. But if they both want to get married, ain't kofin. That's what Rav says. Rav. When they came before Rav, Amar Lahu, when people would come before Rav, he would tell them, even do whatever you want. But it depends on you, as the pasuk says, if you don't want to, but if you want to, you can do whatever one you pre, either chalatz or yibum. If they both want to get married, that's okay. But Rav Yehuda Savar ain't kof. Rav Yehuda also, I'm going to ask him, Rav Yehuda Begita, the chalitza. When they gave when they gave the chalitza, they gave her a receipt, so to speak, like we do today. If a person gives a get today when they give a get, they immediately tear up the get afterwards, so that she shouldn't use it. It's not healthy for a valid get to be circulating. She might collect her ksub again. It might fall into the wrong hands. They give her a receipt though that proves that she's been divorced, so she can get married at some other court. So Rav Yehuda, they wrote a get of chalitza, right? And he wrote in it, Eich Plonis Pas Ploni, this woman, whatever, Plonis Pas Ploni, Akvas Yaspana brought her yavam. So there's plenty of them. This guy Yavam Kadmana Lebeidin before this bezin Bashkimun, and we ascertained the Afad Mesna, right? And we ascertained that he is indeed a brother of the deceased, and they had the same father. And we told them, if you want to make yibum, ilo. If not, itla. Extend your right yamina. Extend your right foot. The itla. He extended his right foot. The yamina, his right foot. And she took off his shoe from his foot. We'll see later on what kind of a shoe it has to be, a whole issue about that. And she spit in front of him, in front of his face. It doesn't mean she spit in his face. It means she spit in front of him. Spit that can be seen al ara. Tosa says it doesn't have to be on the ground. Then you take it around, but if it's preferable if it's on the ground, they can see it. but you have to see it in the air. Rav Chia Bar Avi Masayim by Bishmeid Rav Yehuda, he says in the name of Rav Yehuda, what they did was they added on. This is speaking of Rav Yehuda, the Amora. He wrote this in the get, and he added on the name of Rav Yehuda Bakrinu, and we had them read Madach Sibba Sefer Oraisa to Moshe, what's written in the Torah Moshe, meaning the psukim over there. It says that if you don't want to lo chafatzti lekachta me'ein yavi yavam yavmi, he doesn't want to be miyavmi. Went through the whole process over there. But you see also in Kofan, if he wants to, you let him make a yibam if they both want to. Ashmeinu, it says over here, we ascertain. What do you mean you ascertain that he was yavam? Pligi barabachav rabino. Machlokas, what do you mean ascertain? Chanamar ba'edim. You need Adam to say that he is indeed a brother. V'chadamar afilu karav, even a relative, afilu isha, anybody's believed. It's simply something that's going to be known. It's people know if he's really the brother, and therefore it's simply revealing something that would be known anyway, and therefore anybody's believed to say that he's the brother. Even a woman or a relative is believed to say that he is indeed the brother. And you say Adam over here. What do you mean Adam? How do you prove somebody is the brother from the father's side? You know, it's very hard to prove that. The midwife can say, yes, these two kids came out of the same womb because I birthed them both and I saw them grow up, and I can testify. But how can you prove that somebody is the answer is it's enough to say they grew up in the same household. We knew they were married, and we knew these kids were born this way, etc., etc. That's good enough. That's good. That's all the Adam can say. And Rashi says, Adam should that he's indeed the father. So that's what they do, but he had choice either way. So we said over here, originally when they had kavanah for shem mitzvah, so it was preferable to do yibam. Better do yibam than chalitza. Now that people don't have the right intentions, amru mitzvahs chalitza, mitzvahs yibam. So this manazeh, they do chalitza before yibam. Even though there was a time when they said preferable to do chalitza, they reverted back and they said now preferable to do yibam. Amr of Nachman. So Nachman said, what are the generations getting holier? Are they getting better? We know, the earlier generations, maybe they were tzaddikim. We're getting less and less. What do you think now? We're getting better. We were better than before? No. The answer is not that he's saying that we're in better times, but rather Mikar like Abishol. Originally, like Abishol. Abishol says you shouldn't do yibam at all. In the end, like Rabban, you could do yibam. The Tanya. Abishol, this is the machlokes Abishol and Rabban. Abishol Omer Akonis yibimto. If you marry your yavama, l'shem noi, for beauty, you love her, right? She's beautiful. L'shem ishus, or simply here it means l'shem ishus means that he wants to be known that he's married. He looks more. He gets a better aliyah if he's married. It looks better the way l'shem davar for any reasons. Right? They'll let him be the chazan. L'shem davar acher. And for any other reason, it's like he's living with his brother's wife in sin. It's like he's going Arab. I think any children came from as a mamzer because he didn't do the shem mitzvah. That's Abishol's opinion. No. Yivami let me come up, and Pasuk says you should live with it. Pasuk didn't say he had to do it the shem mitzvah. Even if he did the mitzvah is to take even. Didn't say that he had to do it the right kavanah. It's a mitzvah anyway. That's the machlokes of Abishol and the Chacham. So originally he went like the Chacham, then he held like Abishol, then he went back to the Chacham Shita. That's what he means, not that the generations were better. Mantan, who's the author of the following brayso? Tan Rabbanan, listen to this drasha. It says Yivami v'ola mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to perform yibam. Shebetchilo hayala b'chlal heter. Originally, before Reuven married Leah, could Shimon have married Leah when they were never married, right? Shimon and Leah were brothers. Shimon and Reuven were brothers, and Leah was a single girl. Shimon could have married her. Originally, he could have married her, and he didn't have, there was no yibum, nobody was married. Nesra, once Reuven married her, she became now Eishasach to Shimon. Now she's Asr. Now that Reuven died, she's mutter again. I may think she can go back to his original heter. And what does that mean, original heter? He wants to marry her, he doesn't want to marry her. It's a mitzvah to marry her. It's a mitzvah. It's not like you could say, well, originally I had a choice. Shimon says I could have married Leah if she would agree, or I could have not. See, now he had a choice before. Now he was also when Reuven was married to her. Now that Reuven died, maybe it's a regular choice again. Mitzvah. Montana. Who is the author of this brayso? Is it Abishol or is it the Rabbanan? So Rabbi Yitzchak was about being Abishol. It's Abishol Kamer. It's Abishol Vachkamer. Yivami Oleh Mitzvah Shebetchilah Taisula B'chal Heter. He could have married her for any reason. Originally, he He could have married her for any reason he wants. He just loved her. He fell in love with her. She was beautiful, whatever. Or he wanted to be married, whatever it was. Concept. He could have married her. Nesra, once Reuben married her, Shimon's Asr. Right? Chazar B'Hutra, now that Reuben died, she can go back. I think she can go back to his original heter, meaning if he wants to, he can marry her for whatever reason he wanted. Limitzvah. That's what he does. It says Abishol, we're saying explain now, Rabbi Yisrael is saying that this process goes Abishol, the mitzvah, meaning only if you do it for a mitzvah. If you don't do it for a mitzvah, it's also, it's back to its original isser. It's like she's still married to Reuven. That's Abishol. Rav Meir feels time Rabbanan. You can interpret this price even if it's Rabbanan. Originally, he could have married her or not, right? Before anybody was married. If you wanted to marry, you could marry. If you didn't want to marry, you didn't have to marry her. There's no law that you have to marry a particular woman. If you're out in the street, Nesser, once Reuben married her, she became Asr Shimon, brother's wife. Chazar B'Hutra, now that Reuben died, I think go back to original heter, Ratza Konsa, Ratza Ein Konsa. If he wants to marry her, yes or no. So the Gemara says, what do you mean Ratza Ein Konsa? How could you say if he wants to, he cannot marry her? She's bonded to him. There's Yibum here. She's going to go out with nothing. Couldn't go back to his original situation. The Torah says, if he dies, Shimon's supposed to either perform Yibum or Chalitza. Elaima, Ratza Konsa, Ratza Chalitza. I might think if he wants to, it makes no difference. You have a choice. You want to marry her or give her Chalitza, one of the two. There's no preference. Mitzvah. The Rabbanan will say, no, the mitzvah is to perform Yibum. You have a choice of Yibum or Chalitza. The mitzvah is Yibum. Abishol says, that, what does Yibam teach me? That it's only L'Shem Mitzvah. If you did a L'Shem Mitzvah, then it's okay. If you didn't L'Shem Mitzvah, it's like you're doing an Isser of Eishazach. It's like Erva. And the kids are almost like Mamzeru. Abishol says it's very dangerous to do Yibam. Because if you didn't have the right intention, this is very, very bad. Rabbanan say, no. The Yibam it's a mitzvah, meaning a mitzvah to do Yibam rather than Chalitza. All right. So the Gemara now says, okay, you're interpreting this brisa. One says it could be Abishol, one says it could be the Rabbanan. Ema Seifa, the gift of Ema Seifa. Matzos Techamakim Kadosh. Matzos, isn't that what we're going to eat tonight? Matzos Techamakim Kadosh. They were speaking about a Korban Mincha. Korban Mincha, what is Korban Mincha? It's a flour offering. Almost all the Korban Minchas have to be, almost all, part of the Toda is Chometz, and on Shavuos, the Shtei Alechem is Chometz, but almost all other Menachos have to be Lechem upon them, the 12 loaves, that's Matzah. They might be thick and all that, and in the form of a box and all that, but those are matzah. So it says, what do you do with a regular Korban Mincha? The Kohen takes the kmitza. Remember, like that's like the shchita, right? He takes the kmitza and he puts it in the klishares, and he takes his makabel and klishares, takes it to halach the mizbech, and he puts it on there, and that's matter the rest of the Korban Mincha to be eaten by a Kohen, because the Korban Mincha is kachim, only eaten by Kohen, and it's matter. So it says over there, the Kohanim, after it's matzos te'achel b'makom kadosh. Mitzvah, they should eat it. What does that mean? Before this flour was ever sanctified, before it became a Korban Mincha, it was heter, right? Anybody could eat it. The Kohen could eat it. Anybody could eat it. Nesra, once it became a carbon, you couldn't eat it. It's a carbon. You have to be makrav. You have to do the kmitza first. Chazar B'Hutra. Now, once he made the kmitza and he put it on the mizbech, the rest of the Korban Mincha could be eaten. Not a Minchas Kohen. A Minchas Kohen is totally burnt, but a Mincha Yisrael, the Kohen serves it and puts the kmitza on the mizbech, and the rest of it's mutter. I might think if he wants to, he can eat. He could go back to his original heter. Tamalover matzos teachel makam kadosh. No, he's supposed to eat it. Mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to eat it. So Bishlam, again, this is the sefer, the same idea. It's a mitzvah. Like you say, Yivamil mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? Bishlam the Rav who said it's going like the Rabbanan, Damar Hamani Rabbanan goes like Rabbanan. Mitzvah. Matzos teachel makam kadosh. Mitzvah. What does it mean? Shabbatchila Yisrael b'chal heter. Ratza ochelas. Ratza ochla. Ratza edafa. I have some flour over here. So all that I have to eat it? No. Could have eaten it. Could have not eaten it. All right. Nesra, once it became Asr, became Kachim. Chazra, B'Hutra. Now it's mutter again after he did the kmitza. If he wants to eat it, he might think it goes back to its original thing. But he would more mean Ratza Ein Ochla. So the pasuk says, when the Kohanim eat it, the Kohen, actually the carbon is finished as soon as he did the kmitza and was burned. That's like Shchita Kabbalah Chazrika. But the mitzvah is for the Kohen to eat it so that the Baal get a full kapara. So what do you mean he doesn't have a choice not to eat it? He should eat it, the one who served, the one who did the kmitza, or another Kohen can eat it. In other words, him or another one. That's similar to Ratza Miyabam, Ratza Choletz, right? If you have a choice. Once it's originally could have married her, it was mutter. Now we said before. Then it became also once Reuven dies. Now it's original hetzer, meaning he has a choice of either doing yibam or chalitza. So the pasuk says yibam, it's a mitzvah. Mitzvah better to do the yibam. Here also, the choice is either he could eat it or another Kohen could eat it. If any Kohen eats it, the Baal gets his kapara. Mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for him to eat it. That's what we mean over here. So according to Rabbanan, the Reish and the Sefer, the Reish is talking about yibam, the Sefer is talking about the matzos of a mincha. So it's the same idea. It's a mitzvah. It's preferable for you to do it. El Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, who said what? That you can't do it, right? If you do it shalosh shem mitzvah, it's also. So it's like this or that. El Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, hachamai trei gavnika. What are the two choices? Rashi says, hachamai trei gavnika. The kamai tana yachol tachlat rishon tamulom delo. You can't do it. V'haleklemei tachlat rishon. Ratza l'shem mitzvah ochel, ratza shlo l'shem mitzvah ochel is not l'shem mitzvah. Tamalom delo, you can't do eat shlo l'shem mitzvah because it's not like in the case of yibum, if you do it shlo l'shem mitzvah, it's like you're pekei be'erva. But here, if you ate it, if the Kohen ate it shlo l'shem mitzvah, did he do a terrible sin? What are you going to say over here? He can either eat it with an appetite or eat it when he's full, like achila gasa, which is also to eat. Tonight the afikomen. Make sure that you have an appetite when you eat afikomen. Otherwise, you're not yotze mitzvah. You can't eat achila gasa. Is not yotze. Slicha. Efshar b'sheket tamafriya. Okay. So you might think that achila gas, ochelas achila gas. So you might think maybe that's the choice. What's the choice over here? Either eat it with a mitzvah or eat it without a mitzvah. So what does that mean? So maybe the choice is eating it with the te'avon or you eat it achila gasa. Achila gasa mi shmei achila. Is that called achila? That's not achila at all, right? That's not considered achila. V'amar shlakash ochel achila gasa yom kippur potter. If you ate achila gasa, you were full. You stuffed yourself before Yom Kippur. And then on the night of Yom Kippur, you ate some more. You just stuffed it in. Right? You're potter from lo seuna because you didn't avoid affliction that way because achila gas is not achila. So it can't mean that. Ela rotza matzah ocheles, rotza matzah ochla, rotza chametz ochla. Maybe that's what it means. Can you eat it as matzah or eat it as chametz? Maybe that would be your choice. That would be the havmina. In other words, what's your havmina over here? That you're going to eat it as chametz, and that's not even. That can't be. But you can't even eat part of it as chametz. Meaning that certainly can't be. What is the choice over here that you're thinking about? In other words, you're saying according to Abba Shaul, that we're talking about if you ate it l'shem mitzvah, yes, and if you ate it shelo l'shem mitzvah, it's a terrible sin. What terrible thing are you doing over here? If your choice would be achila gasa, that's not even achila. If you're eating as chametz, no mincha could be eaten as carbon chametz. The issue is what you can maybe eat it as you would think that maybe you can eat it as matzah or eat it as chalet. Chalet means it's scalded like dumplings. You first scalded the flour and then you baked it. So high chalet echidami matzah. If it's matzah, so matzah. What's the chiddush? Of course, then what's so terrible? V'lo matzah. And if it's not matzah, matzah samrachmana. So it says you have to eat matzah. So why would you think, what would be your havamina that you should be able to do this, that the pasuk has to say no, it's l'shem mitzvah. It says matzah, it is matzah. That's why the pasuk repeated a second time la'akiv to show you that you can't eat this challah. In other words, according to Abba Shaul, the pshat would be this. Originally, you could eat this flour before it was kaddish. Now that it was kaddish, you can't. Then after you did the kmitza and put it on the mizbeach, you might think you could eat it this way or chas v'chli eat it the other way. What's the other way? As knedels, right? You ate it as scalded, and even though that's matzah, but the pasuk says no, matzos teachel b'makom kadosh. It's got to be matzah, only matzah, and therefore that's the chiddush in that. But as el cholet matzah, if the cholet is matzah, the kaminan. So you say cholet is really matzah. You're saying it is matzah, but the pasuk's telling you can't. It's got to be real pure matzah, not this kind of matzah. El cholet matzah, the kaminan ma'achsa. So why do you say cholet is matzah if you can't eat it as a carbon mincha? So what is it? Why in what aspect is cholet considered matzah? Lomar, to teach me sha'aram yotzei v'yidei chavasav Pesach, that your yotzei chasa. Listen, it's amazing. We're having this Gemara right here. Tonight's Pesach, right? That your yotzei, your chov on Pesach by eating even flour that was first scalded and then baked. Even though you first scalded it, even the hadrafi, since you baked it after it's betanur in an oven, less than 18 minutes. Lechamoni Korean, it's called lechamoni. So that's a nice way to end this Gemara. Tomorrow's daf on the podcast actually starts from the beginning of the daf, so it will be a little review. On Sunday, Mirz Hashem, the first day of Chol Hamoed, we will start from on Shabbos' daf, 8 lines from the bottom of the page. Mutram, there's 2 dots there. We'll start from there before the Mishnah, because that's where we did the podcast last time. And we'll start from there. But at the end of the day, we have something about Pesach, and we have Abba Shaul's rule, which is what we follow today among Ashkenazim. We don't perform Yibam at all. Today, it's not allowed because we're afraid that you do it Shalom L'Shem Mitzvah, and the Chassidus could have Abba Shaul's concern that it could be car of the children to be mamzer.
Even though they went back to Rabbanan.
Even though at that time they went back, but today we don't do. That was his opinion. Rav Yehuda said that. Rav Yehuda Sarein Kofin, because he went back there. He went back to his original opinion. Who was it who went back there? No, not that he went back. No, actually, it wasn't him. It was Rav Mechama Yitzchak says Chazulom Chazuloma. It was Rav Mechama Yitzchak said that. So if Nachman Yitzchak asked him, "Were you better?" No, he says he went like originally held like Abba Shaul. He held back. It was like Rabbanan, but today we go like Abba Shaul. But there were Sephardi communities, I think, until recent times that they did Yibam. All right, have a good day. Chag kosher v'sameach. Chag kosher v'sameach.
Everybody.